It all started innocently enough, or at least it appeared that way on the surface. The studio lights were glowing their usual artificial warmth. Cameras trained on the familiar panel of hosts as the live broadcast of The View kicked off. Another routine morning episode. It's the audience, some still clutching coffee cups and whispering excitedly, buzzed with anticipation, unaware they were about to witness a moment that would ignite headlines, divide opinion columns, and ripple across social media with the intensity of a thunderclap. Whoopi Goldberg sat center stage, her aura as commanding as ever, comfortable in her role as both moderator and provocateur. Her voice, seasoned by decades in showbiz, projected confidently as she opened the discussion to the day's guest, the revered, often enigmatic Denzel Washington. Known for his Academy Awards and unmatched gravitas, Denzel had been invited to speak about his recent film, a complex drama rooted in moral redemption and spiritual awakening. However, beneath the polite smiles and showbiz decorum, an unexpected confrontation was brewing, one that would push both participants to the edge of their composure. The discussion, initially framed around themes of faith and cinema, subtly shifted. Whoopi, known for her candid takes, leaned in with a pointed curiosity, her tone sharpening ever so slightly as she challenged Denzel on the overt Christian themes in his performance. "You talk about Jesus a lot in your roles," she said, eyebrows raised. "But I've heard some people say it's just for show, that maybe you don't really believe all that stuff, that you might even resent it." Her words hung in the air like smoke, curling around the silence that followed. The audience, sensing the tension, fell into a hushed anticipation. Denzel, unshaken, but clearly contemplative, narrowed his eyes ever so slightly. It was not just a question, it was an accusation, and one that struck at the very core of who he was. He glanced briefly toward the studio ceiling, as if summoning an unseen strength, before slowly turning back to Whoopi. "You're asking me if I hate Jesus?" he said, voice calm, but resonant with something deeper. "Let me be very clear. I don't perform faith. I live it." The room grew still. Whoopi blinked, visibly thrown off by the directness of his response. Denzel continued, unhurried and unshaken. "See, for me, Jesus isn't a brand. He's not a line in a script. He's the reason I wake up with purpose. The reason I stay grounded when the world hands me awards and applause. And if people think that makes me unlikable or controversial in Hollywood, I'm okay with that. I answer to a higher authority." The crew behind the cameras exchanged wide-eyed glances as Whoopi, for one of the rare moments in her broadcasting career, found herself at a loss for words. She opened her mouth to interject, but no sound came. The silence wasn't awkward. It was awestruck. Denzel's unwavering tone had done more than answer a question. It had redefined the conversation, shifting the atmosphere from daytime chatter to something nearly sacred. The broadcast had unwittingly become a national reckoning about authenticity, belief, and the invisible battles waged in the hearts of celebrities under constant scrutiny. And as the cameras kept rolling, America was witnessing something that couldn't be scripted, a moment of raw conviction. In the seconds that followed, Denzel's quiet but unshakable response, a strange energy filled the studio, palpable, electric, and undeniably different from anything the morning talk show had ever broadcast. The usual rhythm of The View, part debate, part performance, part carefully managed, tension collapsed under the weight of something profoundly real. For the briefest moment, the studio lights seemed less like spotlights and more like interrogation lamps, casting a raw and uncomfortable clarity over the space. Whoopi adjusted her glasses and leaned back slightly, her trademark confidence flickering for the first time in recent memory. She wasn't used to being challenged, especially not with such humility and force. The rest of the panel, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Sarah In, shifted in their seats like spectators, unsure of which direction the moment would break. Joy raised her eyebrows and pursed her lips as if considering whether to redirect or double down, but she wisely stayed silent. Sunny, herself a Catholic and often vocal about her faith, looked at Denzel with a mixture of respect and intrigue. The silence was not one of fear, it was reverence. The kind that rises when someone speaks from a place of soul-deep conviction, not rehearsed ideology. But it didn't last. The producers, through earpieces, were urging the hosts to regain control. The segment was sliding into uncharted territory and emotional. It's a theological and cultural firestorm playing out on live television. Whoopi cleared her throat. "Well, Denzel," she said slowly, cautiously, "that's certainly one way to answer a question." Her voice had softened. She wasn't backing down, but she wasn't attacking either. But you have to admit, not everyone sees religion or Jesus in the same way. Some people think the emphasis on Jesus can be exclusionary. The word hung in the air like a challenge disguised as diplomacy. It was a calculated pivot, one designed to put Denzel back into the role of defending himself, of softening his stance for the sake of public comfort. But Denzel didn't take the bait. He leaned forward slightly, folding his hands and gazing directly into Whoopi's eyes. "You're right," he said, with no trace of defensiveness. "People see faith differently. I talk about it. So when something saves your life, when it anchors you in storms that would have destroyed you, you don't stay silent. You don't hide it because it makes people uncomfortable. If I had overcome addiction through a rehab center, people would applaud that. If I had overcome trauma through therapy, that would be celebrated. But because I say Jesus pulled me out of darkness, it becomes controversial. That's the real issue here." His words landed like thunderclaps. Not loud, but undeniable. Camera cut briefly to audience members. Their expressions said it all. People weren't just watching a celebrity defend his beliefs. They were witnessing a man dismantle the facade of politically acceptable conversation with pure, unapologetic truth. Whoopi opened her mouth again, but paused. For the first time, perhaps ever, the words didn't come immediately. It wasn't that she lacked something to say, it was that she knew anything she said would sound rehearsed, trivial, or insincere in the shadow of Denzel's testimony. The control she usually held effortlessly over every room she walked into was slipping. Through her fingers, behind the scenes, producers scrambled. Social media was already erupting. On Twitter, clips of the exchange were going viral under hashtags like #DenzelSpeaksTruth and #FaithOnTheView. Commentators were lining up on both sides, some praising Denzel for his courage, others criticizing the show for veering into religious extremism. The irony was not lost on Denzel. It said nothing hateful, nothing exclusive, nothing inflammatory. He had simply answered honestly. And yet, the world around him was reacting as though he had detonated a bomb. That was the nature of truth in an age of curated identities and transactional belief systems. When spoken without fear, it unsettled everyone clinging to comfortable illusions. Whoopi finally leaned forward again, choosing her next move with, "Care, let's say for the sake of discussion that your personal relationship with Jesus is that deep," she said. "What do you say to people, fans, maybe even young actors who look up to you but don't believe the same way? Do you think they still belong in your story?" Denzel didn't flinch. "Absolutely," he said, nodding slowly. "I'm not here to convert anyone. I'm here to live what I believe. If that challenges people, then maybe that's a good thing. Because comfort never changed the world. Truth did." Again, the studio was silent. Not because there was nothing to say, but because what had been said required something rare in television: reflection. For the first time that morning, the view wasn't just about noise, it was about meaning.